Over the last few months, I've tried my hardest to become a better builder in Minecraft, managing to go from this to this. It's something I've wanted to do for a while now, and so I finally committed, and even though I'm still learning and nowhere near a pro, I thought I'd make this video to share how I broke free from being a bad builder and how I'm continuing to improve to this day. So let's go over some basics and some things which can help you if you've already tried building or if you're completely new. To start, you need a vision, a limit, and a drive. You don't have to spend all your time thinking about what to build or trying to decide between one thing or another. All you need is an idea which you can picture in your head and which you genuinely want to make. Instead of procrastinating for ages, collect some build ideas you thought up over the last week or so and choose one which makes you feel the most excited. And if that's not to your liking, one thing I've done is starting to find reference images online for inspiration and making creative worlds where I can just build whatever I feel like in the moment. This will give you more freedom and less stress when you build, making it more enjoyable overall. This also means that you may start to find a correlation in your ideas which highlights a specific pattern in your build. This is your style and everyone's is different. Don't try to copy the way others build, just take inspiration and incorporate it into your own builds. But once you've done this, you'll need to know your current limit. As you get better and more confident at building, your limit will start to rise, giving way for your bigger ideas. If you've just started building, you need to start small and grow from there. Your limit and your experience building are what you call directly proportional. In other words, as one increases, so does the other, but both have to start from zero for it to work. By recognizing and setting your limit, it will become more clear which of your ideas are currently feasible and which are not, allowing you to make a uniform decision on which you should pursue first and which you should come back to later. Building after taking on board the simple idea will now feel a lot more like a hobby rather than a constant challenge, leading you to enjoy it more and get better because of it. However, all of this will be over very quickly if you quit before you even start. So the last thing I've realized that you need is a genuine drive and want to build. You don't need to be obsessed or spend hours on hours playing, researching and building, you just need to have an underlying want to build. You'll find it torturous if you don't actually feel good from building, so if you don't have that drive, there's no point in trying, unless you can find it. Your drive will also let you commit to bigger, more time-consuming builds, and create a good relationship with the game itself instead of dreading it. These three things seem big, but are pretty simple, and will give you a solid foundation for when you come to build. By remembering them, you'll be able to create builds at your own skill level and in your own time, making the overall experience much more rewarding. Anyway, let's start by going over the planning aspects of building. I've learned that structure is one of the most important aspects of any build, as it makes them look interesting and adds depth, so plan with that in mind. We'll use different indicator blocks to create a framework with different colours showing different rooms. This is a pretty basic step, but it allows you to get a good idea on how big and what shape your build will be, as well as how it will compare to any reference images you're going to use. The different colours within the framework will become a blueprint for each section of your build, but they could also show something else depending on your personal preference and style. Some blocks I like to use are bright coloured blocks like wool or concrete, but I sometimes use blocks that will be used in the build to get a better idea on how I want it to look. Once that's laid out, try and collect a portfolio of definite and possible blocks to be used in your build and put them into your hotbar to get easy access. And if you have any textures, gradients, etc. in your head, you can lay them out too to see how they'd look and work with your vision from earlier. By doing all these things, you can make building 10 times easier than it was before, saving time and making it more enjoyable. A lot of builds are carried by their aesthetics later on, so being able to get the basics done quickly will make the end product look and feel better than before. If you feel it still isn't enough, you can create mood boards, mind maps, sketches and more to take your efficiency and productivity to the next level. But after making the plan, you actually have to start placing the real blocks. If you're not sure what blocks you want to use in your build yet, then the easiest thing to do is to just experiment. Even though you can make a building take less time, important things like block choice, detailing and texturing should still take up some time to make sure things are how you want before any massive changes are made. But let's say you already have some ideas that you want to set in motion. To start, you need to consider how you want your build to look from both the inside and the outside. This could mean moving blocks one backward to add depth or to purposely leave space open to make the interior more open plan than enclosed. Implementing simple things like this will make figuring out certain aspects of your build 10 times easier, and it also allows you to get some ideas on what certain areas will look like and be for. So let's say you've chosen some simple oak wood for the walls of your build, but then you fill everything in and it just doesn't look right. Now you probably already know what I'm going to tell you, and that's to add logs or accent blocks to spruce up the corners of your build. Most people already know to do that when building, but if you didn't, then make sure to include it as it makes all the difference. On top of this, try to add different frames, blocks and styles to create structures which will work well with what you want, and only stop when you're happy. This is another reason why creative mods are so useful for build testing, as you get unlimited access and time to any blocks or possibilities that you may want to use while constructing your new build. Simple mods like Imatica can be used to copy and paste blueprints into different worlds anytime, making things easier to copy and correct. Next, try using different shapes in your build to base your ideas off. Bigger and wider walls will need bigger and thicker details and adjustments, while small walls will only need smaller details. After this, lots of your walls and blank spaces will now disappear and seem a lot more lively and eye-catching instead. However, before doing these things, something like texturing may be more your style. Anything I mentioned can be included all together in the same build, but you may want to do some things in a certain order. Texturing is using blocks with similar shades, textures or colours to create gradients and or patterns in your builds to make them look smoother and blend into the environment more. It's a high level skill which is hard to wrap your head around, but it offers a lot of possibility when used in the right way. By doing it first, it might give you a better view on what should go where, and how things should look now that things look much cleaner. Another technique you could include could be sectioning, which involves cutting up bigger surfaces into different sections to add more variety, and to make them easier to fill in. It can make your build stand out a lot more, while still staying subtle and making a great addition to an already great build. However, even though I've mentioned so many different techniques and styles, if one doesn't fit how you build, you don't have to feel pressured to include it. If you even just find one technique and one style of building that you like, you can use it to make builds much better than someone who's trying to cramp everything in. But now I have an idea on how you can add detail and structure, so let's move on to a major part of the build. In this example, I'll be using a simple house I built, as it perfectly shows what I want to tell you. When someone looks at what you've made, they're almost always going to see it at the front before anything else. Therefore, learning how to make the large surface at the front of your build look good is incredibly important. So how would you do that with a house? Well, by looking at the structure of a house, you can see that they mostly move up into a point at the top which leads to the roof. So to start, we'll create a simple test point and expand off it from there. If you have a certain block type in mind for the front section, try experimenting with different textures and offset colours from the bottom to the top to create a small yet good looking front to the house. You could also use structuring depending on the size, or you could add things like windows or canopies, especially if you're planning on making an attic. But then comes the roof. This part of the build is kind of tricky, as it can ruin everything if used wrongfully, but can improve everything if used right. Using this guide shown on screen now, you can predict and try out different roof styles until one fits. You could do a basic triangle roof, a big pointy roof, or maybe a more flat roof. Whatever you choose though will need to be the best option, but there may be more. That's why you can see how I blended my main roof structure into a more flat overhang slab based roof, to add depth, detail, and to make it look realistic. Spending large amounts of time on the roof is probably the best plan of action because rushing it could lead to a total disaster. This goes for any aspect of your build, just take your time. If you need more time for texturing, take it. If you need more time for structuring, take it. And if you need more time for the front or back, take it. No matter what you do, rushing something because you feel like you have to move on will always result in the worst looking build. Now that we actually have a roof, it's time to start detailing. Detailing on a roof shouldn't only be things like texturing, and I would know, I'm still improving myself. Adding smaller structures, leaves, effects, or anything that would look good onto a roof can add so much more depth and intrigue to a build, making it look a lot more high level. So whenever you have the chance, try adding some to spruce up the edges and main aspects of your build. And before I forget, always try to add an overhang in a different block onto your roof to make it pop so much more. Now it's time for the final changes, detailing and polishing. Anything that you think you could improve on or make better, take the time to do so. This will make the build look a lot more complete to you and stop things like doubt and unsatisfaction. But the build is nowhere near done. Let's go to the interior. The interior is one of those things that I personally had a lot of trouble with over the last few months. Trying to make everything feel like it belongs and deserves to be there takes a bunch of time and experimenting, as well as having to take into consideration your build's unique aspects to make it work. So I've compiled a few things that have helped me to create a baseline when it comes to interiors, these being sectioning, structuring, detailing, and filling. I know most of those I mentioned before, but there's some slight tweaks. Sectioning in interiors is cutting up rooms instead of cutting up space, and while it still could be used for that, I think it's much better. By specifically choosing certain rooms for certain purposes, you can section them off using arches or doorways to make it much easier to decorate. One room could be used for smelting, one could be used for crafting, and one could be used for storage. The possibilities are endless, so choose your rooms and start to cut them off. Also, by using a different block type similar to ones already used in your build, you can make sectioning look way more natural, and by detailing and decorating them later on, you can really make something simple that you're proud of. Then comes structuring, which pretty much stays the same. By adding smaller structures to empty or enclosed walls, you can make them look a lot more refined, and like they're meant to be there. This can be in the form of small tables, shelves, storage units, bed frames, really anything that you can put your mind to, as long as it fits. This adds realism to your builds and makes the interior look a lot smoother rather than erratic. Also, by incorporating a basement and floors into structures, you can get some nice hidden storage spots and a beautiful looking build. After that, it's detailing. By taking things you've already made inside a build and adding textures, gradients and more, you can elevate your interior and make it blend nicely with everything else. It also allows for contrast between the interior and exterior, depending on what vibe you're going for, and if you want everything to match or not. It also works as a way to spruce up boring sections of a build and acts as the last piece that brings everything together. And finally, filling. Filling is what I like to call filling of empty spaces in an interior to refine its edges and looks. For example, I put some cabinets from the Adorn mod and bookshelves from the newest update in a pattern along the rim of the stairs to fill in gaps that would otherwise look ugly. It's something very simple that you could incorporate into your builds to make things feel complete and refined as you finish. Of course, there's lots of other tips and techniques I haven't included, but by using the ones I've just listed, you should be able to do the rest from there. And now the last main thing you need to do to make a build mostly complete is an exterior. This is probably the easiest of the 3 stages in my opinion, but you may think differently, so I'll make sure to still go into lots of depth. The way an exterior looks purely depends on your style of building, location, and build theme. So by finding inspiration specific to you is a good way to get some ideas. Once you've done that, you need to make some sort of start. One thing you could do is texture the floor around key elements of your builds to make them stand out more by using natural block variations to create an undistracting effect. For something basic like greenery, this could be a combination of dirt, grass, coarse dirt, moss, and maybe mossy cobblestone to create a more standout look in the corners of your build. Another thing I've learned to do if possible is very small amounts of structuring. Of course this gets easier when your build is a certain scale, probably right in the middle of big and small, but if there's anything you've tried and liked, including it at the front and sides of your build can make it feel a lot more unique and creative to an external viewer. It also allows your build to truly look like it belongs in its environment when done right. Also, effects can be used to really enhance the build's visuals and story aspect, but it depends on how you do it. Sure, there's vanilla options like this lightning thing, but by adding 1 or 2 mods or marketplace add-ons, you can get an effect library which you'll learn to love, make them blend a lot easier, and you could probably even use them on some of your structures as well. And the final thing I'd personally use on an exterior is blending. It's a word I've used a lot throughout today's video, and it's something which I think can really elevate and complete a build in a way no other technique can. By selecting the right blocks and looking at a build from slightly further away, some things will start to nicely blend together without you even realizing. And if you learn to forcefully create blending using textures, structuring, etc., you can make virtually any build look good. To end, I just want to clarify some things so there isn't any misconceptions. 1, I'm still a new and learning builder who is nowhere near professional level, so I still don't know every popular technique or style when it comes to building, and my builds aren't next level. 2, there's a lot about building that I haven't included in this video, but that doesn't mean that they are void or shouldn't be used. If there's anything you'd personally like to do when building, still do it and tell me in the comments below so I can improve myself. 3, sometimes, even after using every technique or spending hours trying to perfect one build, it can feel like you're still missing something and that your build isn't good enough. To combat this, ask people to peer review and try to take breaks. After spending ages obsessed with something, it takes a new and clear mind to really see all the effort. So by getting someone's opinion, you can get a fresh perspective on what you should and what you shouldn't do. And finally, 4. Practice is absolutely the most important thing I can tell you to do as a new builder. Even if you know all the skills, without practicing, your work will just end up being crap and disappointing, so actually put in the effort and you'll reap what you sow. And well, that's everything. Thank you so much for watching the video to the end. It really means the world to me that you guys enjoy my content, and you're my main motivation to keep working, so again, thank you. So if you enjoyed today's video, then please like, comment and subscribe to help me improve and grow my channel, and watch these videos on the screen now if you like my style of videos. Thank you all so much for watching, keep practicing, and I'll hopefully see you very soon in the next one. Goodbye.